All praises and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Rakah Kodash. Double honors to our apostle elders which rule great millstone well, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. May you endure unto the end. Shalom wa abababal. Alright, so I'm making this video in response of this video that Vocab Maloney Baloney did, naming it, the title is Examining Hebrew Israelism Evidence, which this devil right here I'm going to let it play, and then I'm going to get some evidence of this devil being wrong again.
Back with some material by the late, great Dr. Heiser. And the Back Creek Stone, I haven't really done anything on that. And some inscriptions in Newark, Ohio, that they'll say are legitimate. And the funny thing is, a lot of them are the same ones that Mormons use to show that Indians supposedly are Hebrews. Oh, and I have a blog about that at theshieldSquad.com. If you look at theshieldSquad.com, I have two blogs about the Israelite Indian theory, or sometimes called the Hebraic Indian theory, because the One Westers embrace that as well. Okay, let's play this. This is a recent call. Dr. Brown got this call where a One West Hebrew Israelite called, and he began the call by speaking Lashawan Kodash, which is a non-existent form of Hebrew. And Dr. Brown called him out on it, and they had an interesting conversation. If you want to call it that.
Yahweh, who is our Heavenly Father, Bahashem, in the name of Yahweh Shai, who the world so called ignorantly Jesus Christ.
By the way, can I just say that all your Hebrew pronunciation is 100% wrong according to ancient Hebrew. Just wanted to
all right,
let you know that 100% grammatically, morphologically wrong, 100% according to ancient Hebrew, which I read fluently.
What makes you think it's wrong?
I know it's wrong because we know vowel structure from the ancient languages.
So, okay, so what's your answer to the ancient Hebrew name of our Heavenly Father?
So, yeah, Yahweh and Yeshua. Yeshua is fixed. We know that for certain.
That's where you're wrong because there's no U in the ancient Hebrew Galileo.
Yes, there is. Of course there is. You're 100% ignorant. Okay? This is my field. I got a PhD in it. I read it fluently in the original scripts, the original languages. Of course, there's an ooh sound. Absolutely. I can prove it categorically. I can prove it by comparative data from Akkadian. I can prove it with comparative data from other inscriptions. I can prove it from development of the language of Hebrew and Syriac and Aramaic and Arabic, none of which you know, and all of which.
As you can see, this devil, all he's saying is lies. All right, and I'm going to show you that right now. The prophecy, and this shows you that these so-called Christians ain't got it. All right, and the counterfeits ain't got it. The Edomites, the so-called Caucasians that claim to be the real Jews, which are not, they're counterfeits, and that shows that they don't have no faith either, because this thing of ours is by faith. All right, and all that man was doing was straight up lying. This is why we call you so-called Caucasian people the devil, because you deceived the whole entire world, because you got a tongue that is smooth as butter, all right, sweet to the ear like honey, but in your heart is war. You're doing it to deceive us so that you could destroy us. All right, it says in Zephaniah 3 verse 9, for then will I turn to the people a pure language. A pure language is that Lashawan Kodash, and he gave it to us through our elders, the leadership of Israel, which starts with the apostles of Great Millstone, which rule Great Millstone, and they rule it well. They are the ones that taught us the truth and brought us into the Paleo-Hebrew. All right? And just so you know, that word there, pure, in the Hebrew is tahar. All right? And it ain't no coincidence that our head apostle, his name is Tahar. Apostle Tahar, all right? The spirit of truth is not with the Christians. It's not with the other nations, all right? It's with the biblical Hebrew Israelites, and we prove it every day with these videos. It says that they may call upon the name of Yahweh, all right? Which he says it's fixed. If it was fixed correctly, it would have been Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. The name of the son is Yahweh Shai. And when you do transliteration, taking something written and moving it from an ancient language to a modern language, if the characters are not equal, all right, you have to change the name. All right, like if you have Sanskrit, which is not letters, but actually a different form of writing. All right, but in the Hebrew, all right, you have equivalent letters for the pretty much English. So there was no reason to change it from Yahweh, nor to change the name of the Son from Yahushai to so-called Jesus Christ or any other name they tell you. All right, it says that the name of Yahweh, to serve him with one consent, which once again, you got to be in this fold with faith. We stand on faith in Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. We believe that the true Hebrew, the pure Hebrew, is the Lashawan Quadash. And that's why we say the name in Yahweh, which is, Yahweh is Lashawan Quadash. Yah-ha-wah. Hawa exists, and Yah, he. Yahushai. Yahweh, he delivers. All right, Rakah Quadash. Quadash is holy. Rakah is spirit. Bahasham, which you'll hear us say in between the names. In the name. Bahasham. Ba in ha the Sham name. All right, to serve him with one consent, which is in our faith through Yahushai. All right, but now we're getting actually evidence of our faith being true, because we're at the last end, and that's why the so-called Caucasian is troubled, because we're revealing him as the liar he is. All right, so the Romans are the ones that named the people barbarians. All right, it says the ancient Greek, which they started with the Greeks and then the Romans, which I found it in both forms. The Greeks and the Romans were the ones that put this name upon the people of that ancient time. And watch why, okay? And Greek and the Romans, the Greeks and the Romans were so-called Caucasians. All right? It says the ancient Greek word barbaros, from which it derives, meant babbler, and was onomatopoeic. Let's get this. Let's see if it has the
onomatopoeic.
Onomatopoeic. It says to pop, boom. All right, so the words.
Onomatopoeic.
It says using or relating to onomatopoeia. It says bang or and coo. Who speaks like that? Coo. Right? It's Jake. It says in Greek ear, speakers of a foreign tongue made unintelligible sounds. Bar, bar, bar. Which they were speaking Hebrew. Abagada. Ha, wa, ya, ka. So on and so forth. Similar words exist in other Indo-European languages, including the Sanskrit barbara, which means stammering. All right, because the original tongue of the world was Hebrew, the Lashawan Kodash. Phoenician is Lashawan Kodash. All right, the Arabics are speaking a form of the Lashawan Kodash. All right, because the original language was Lashawan Kodash. Now, let me get it in here at another resource. Okay, this here is a barbarian. All right, it says a barbarian or savage, which who is calling the Native American Indian a savage, right? Who calls the so-called black man a savage? The same so-called white man that was back then as a Greek and a Roman is back today as a so-called white man. All right? Lying and deceiving. It says, is someone who is perceived to be either uncivilized. So the Greeks and the Romans were calling them uncivilized, just like they do to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Call them monkeys, call them immigrants, call them aliens, call them all these things. It says, are primitive. The designation is usually applied as a generalization based on a popular stereotype. Barbarians can be members of any nation judged by someone to be less civilized or orderly, such as a tribal society, like an Indian, right? They call the Indians and the Native Americans, the Gadites that are under the name, the so-called Native American Indians. Indians literally means savage. See, the same thing that was going on back then is happening today. It says, but may also be part of a certain primitive cultural group such as nomads. It says, or social class such as bandits, both within and one side one's own nation. Alternatively, they may instead be admired and romanticized, meaning falsified, as noble savages, which is actually true that we are nobles. All right, we're the princes of power. We are Yasha Allah. We are the Israelites. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians are a righteous, holy people, but we are in captivity under our enemies. But I'm going to jump down here. It says the term originates from the Greek barbaros. In ancient Greece, the Greeks used this term not only towards those who did not speak Greek and follow classical Greek customs, because you had Israelites mingled amongst the Greeks. All right? That's why the movie 300. Those 300 men would have been Israelites living like Greeks. It says, let me see, classical Greek customs, but also towards Greek populations on the fringe of the Greek world with peculiar dialects. In ancient Rome, the Romans adapted and used the term towards tribal non-Romans, such as Berbers, Germanics, Celts, Iberians, which goes back to Hebrew. All right. The Syrians, Salakia, let me get this so I can say it correctly. Pronunciation. It says here,
Thracian,
right? It says, see, Bulgaria, Romania, which I know Romanians. A lot of those are Jake. And northern Greece, which you had Japheth up there, all right? And that's who Esau conquered. Also were those Germanic tribes of Japheth, all right? And he took his land and put his name upon himself. That's why he made up that name Greek, all right? Just like they killed the North American Indians and took this land, and now they call themselves the North Americans, all right? They're devils. They're the wicked the Bible speaks of. It says, let's see. Illyrians. It says Samaritans an early modern period, and sometimes later the Byzantine Greeks, which were Jake, all right, dark-skinned people, Israelites, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, which you had some of them up there, but also in the time of them putting us slavery, they would have a cycle of ships taking, Southern Kingdom to the Western Hemisphere, and then you had ships taking the Northern Kingdom to the Eastern Hemisphere. All right, because they conquered us as Greeks and Romans, but then the Northern Kingdom was over here. So when slavery kicked off, they even took them from over here and put them over there. So you got Jake all throughout the world through many generations of slavery. All right, that's why you had Greek Israelites. That's why you had Roman Israelites. Didn't Paul say he was an Israelite, but he was also a Roman citizen? Right? But they did this in mocking us because they're that nation, that dreadful nation that put us in captivity, and they didn't understand our language, which is in the curses in Deuteronomy 28. In verse that they shall not understand our language, it says. In verse 48, it says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, because we sinned against Yahweh, which Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. So we don't own nothing. We have to go to the so-called white man, or to the other nations that are in bed with the so-called white man, with the so-called white man's dollar, with the so-called white man's job that he gave us in his so-called white world. And we go ask for the allowance to live, all right, by the so-called white man in the other nations. It says, in nakedness and in want of all things. Even if you want to make your own clothes, you got to go to the so-called white man's stores or to his allies to buy their products. It says, and if you have anything, look what they did to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and on the Indian reservation of the Oklahoma Indian Reservation, where the killing of the flower moon took place, because you had the Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom getting rich doing business together, and Esau went in there and killed and poisoned and raped and murdered and robbed them. All right, so the Lord has to save us. It says, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, which he put us in slavery, that we forgot who we were, until he have destroyed thee, which our people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Our people are lacking knowledge because the devil, the so-called white race. It says, Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, the Greeks and the Romans, specifically the Romans, but even the Greeks fulfilled, coming from a different part of the world, being Greece and coming and killing Israelites, all right? But this prophecy is really dealing with the Romans, but it fits also the Greeks because they're Edomites. It says, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. And that's why the so-called white man uses the eagle today. Look at America's Great Seal. It says, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, because they weren't speaking the Hebrew. They were speaking Greek, and they were speaking Latin. All right? Because before they were Greeks, before they were Macedonians, they were actually Neanderthals, because they burnt our temple after the Babylonian Assyrians took the southern kingdom into slavery. They became Neanderthals. And then the Lord brought them back out of the caves, and he allowed them to become Greeks and Romans. And then he took them out of power again, and they went into the caves again. And they were Khazars, and now today they're the counterfeits in our land. The so-called white man rules the world with the sword. It says, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. Look at the society today. Who's ruling it? It's the wicked. It says, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind. They built abortion clinics. It says, or flocks of thy sheep until he have destroyed thee. And that's what's in his heart. The so-called white man is death and destruction. All right? The true Hebrew Israelites are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, which have been scattered throughout the world in slavery. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Wa ababa.